Codenames Duet is, you guessed it, two-player Codenames. Sure, you could jerry-rig one of your 10 other versions of this game to make something like it. So what makes Duet different enough? Well, on the surface, everything looks about the same. 5x5 grid of words, spy tiles, and a pattern card. But the pattern card is double-sided. Basically, instead of this being a competitive Codenames game, two people work together to complete both sides of their answer key in a limited number of turns. Per the normal rules, on a player's turn, they give a word and a number referring to how many cards on the table their word clue pertains to. The other player then guesses the words, as few or many as they like, that the clue is about. If they get it correct, they're one step closer to winning. If the player guesses a neutral color, then that ends the turn, and a neutral token is placed on the word. But just because something is a neutral on your side doesn't mean that it is so on the other players. You could see one word as a spy or an innocent bystander, but choosing that as a guess when the other person is giving clues could net you the win. And of course, if a player chooses the dreaded assassin space, then the game ends in a loss. Players are only given a limited number of turns before the game ends. Is Codenames Duet something that's worth owning if you already own one or many of the other versions of the Codenames games out there? So I'll knock that out of the way first. Yes, we're seeing an interesting trend where there's a lot of two-player versions of games come out, and while on the surface Codenames Duet looks very, very similar to this traditional Codenames, and it even plays in a lot of the same ways, there's two things that make it stand out to me and potentially make it the best Codenames out there. One is the cooperative nature. You're not two giant teams or two teams fighting against each other. It's you and one other person that are trying to work together, and it suddenly becomes less a competition and more a cooperative logic word puzzle. And if you've got one other person that you really enjoy playing games with, that whole shift in feeling is a pretty major advantage. And two is the addition of these timer tokens. You don't have big tiles for the neutral, the innocent bystanders. Instead, you've got small tiles that you put on if someone guesses something on your grid that is just a neutral space. But just because it's a neutral space on your side doesn't mean that it's not either the assassin or, one of the spies that you're trying to contact on the other player's side. At the end of each turn, you use up one of those timer tiles, so you have a limited number of turns in which you have to guess the cards. And what that does is it forces one of the best things about Codenames. It forces you into that creative mind. Instead of just doing one word and one clue, at some point you have to jump in and take the risk. And there's less of a risk when it's just you and one other person. There's less pressure, there's less everything. You're in it together, and not only are you in it together, there's not a ton of people around, so this is a game that works really, really well with two people. Now granted, if you don't do most of your gaming with just one other person, any of the other Codenames games is going to be better for this. Codenames is one of the more popular party games out there for good reason. People enjoy that kind of play. And so if it's not primarily going to be just you and one other person, and you're not interested in something, you're not interested in even having that option, then yeah, Codenames Duet is not going to be something that's going to interest you a whole lot. But it is snappier. It makes more sense in my mind. The play is it's just a more fun version of the game. Absolutely, this game stands out on its own. Not only does it stand out on its own, I believe it stands above the rest of the Codenames line. And I mean, look around, get other people's opinions, because that's just mine. And this isn't going to be the game that people will say is the best in the Codenames line for everybody, but it is for me. In addition to everything that I've mentioned before, there's also a campaign mode where you've got a map that has different locations, and you and your partner can go, globe-trot around the world to different locations, different cities, and each one of those has a different difficulty level and different set of rules. Really expanding upon what was a very simple idea for a party game, staying simple, taking it to just two people, and really, in its limitation, it's opened itself up to become what this is. And what it is a fantastic standalone two-player game, one that I thoroughly enjoyed playing and is well worth checking out, especially if you are in a situation where you primarily play with one other person. There you have it, Codenames Duet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We are moving towards 1,000 subscribers. We may get there hopefully soon. If we do, I'm not really sure what we have in store. It's been talk. Yeah, I did say I was going to stream a game, so that is in the future, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.